Welcome to episode 255 of the Grip Strip podcast, the Madhouse and Kermie Gras edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and also a Cannonball Run success story. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, doing great. Of course, great to be back for another week, and NASCAR's back finally. So got a lot of NASCAR stuff to talk about, and of course, also Super Bowl coming up, and guess we'll make our picks and see how the Super Bowl goes, and if Kermit gets his third trophy in a row.
Yeah, and now they got permission, or at least the NFL got permission from Pat Riley for the three-peat moniker. I want to talk about the best move he ever made in his whole entire damn life. Pat Riley was that. Not even his coaching, Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and the like. But yeah, we will talk about the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium this past weekend, which saw William Clyde Elliott, the second win from pole. But it wasn't totally straightforward for him the whole day. A lot of argy-bargy leading up to the main event. The main event, honestly, wasn't too insane, I don't think, until later in the race. But get into all that went on for Clyde to go and get that victory, all the other key storyline drivers that were able to do something in the race and on the weekend. Some surprises, some not so surprising things. News of for sponsors or premier partners in NASCAR coming out here these last few days. So we got that. And then we got some other updates in regards to drivers and teams committing to the season for the Xfinity Series. Oh wow. Wow, that's new. Didn't know that. I missed that news. Spire. Oh, so Spire Motorsports is okay. That's interesting. I completely missed that news story. And that was last week. No wonder. Okay. So, with plenty of NASCAR stuff to go over, NFL coaching and GM changes, Jacksonville, of course, Liam Coen and their whole new situation they got going on, the Niners bringing back Bob Saleh and bringing in a qualified special teams coordinator for the first time, I think, in this whole entire regime. And others. Go over everything else going on. We will do updates with the news, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One. GSP Roundup will give results on the Bathurst 12-hour and Supercross at Glendale last week and the start of the East Coast season this week in Atlanta. We'll also look at MotoGP since there's been testing. So we'll get into that as well. I'll move that up there. We will make our picks and preview Super Bowl 59 and who will get the game's MVP, the NFL honors, and I guess also who we could maybe, depending on timing, pick who we think is going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing in his sim segment, and we'll call it a day. So, yeah, let's start with the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray. It was cool to see the cars, NASCAR's Premier Series at Bowman Gray Stadium for the first time since 1971. They made the trophy the Bobby Allison Trophy in honor of the late, great legend who passed away just a couple of months ago and was the last winner of a Premier Series race at Bowman Gray Stadium. So, pretty apropos. But in the end, another family legacy stood out. His name is Chase Elliott, or William Clyde Elliott II. Goes and beats one of his good buddies, Ryan Blaney, who came from tailback to that position. So William Clyde Elliott II, the winner, led 171 of the race's 200 laps. Ryan Blaney from the provisional 23rd starting spot. Dennis Hamlin was third with his first race with Chris Gale as his crew chief. Defending series champion Joey Logano fourth. Darrell Wallace Jr. fifth. Ross Chastain, Gumby Cindric, Tyler Reddick driving the unbannable Jordan Brand Toyota was eighth. Shane Van Gisbergen was ninth. And Christopher Buescher was 10th. Teammate Ryan Preece, last car on the lead lap. 11 cars of the race's 23 were on the lead lap. Interesting nugget, all four guys who drove for Stewart-Haas last year, full-time, all made the main. So even though they're all in different rides, so credit to all those guys. So Josh Berry, though we can get further. I mean, Briscoe got run over, wrecked, and his steering was knocked off. I didn't know what happened because I was watching it at the V, and I just saw his car was taken off and he was parking. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So I was pissed off, but he wasn't going to win the race anyway, so it didn't really matter. He had run well during the weekend and qualified well, and so, he was competitive with his Toyota teammates. I don't know what he really had. After the one restart, his car got used up, and that was basically the beginning of the end. Kyle Larson actually had to advance out of the LCQ, and there was moments in that LCQ where it was possible where Redneck Jesus 3.0 was not going to make it, but he, because he's Kyle Larson, always seems to figure out a way, or, the C's part, whatever, because of DEI. He got through, and then Josh Berry just said, F it, I'm going to use my bumper, because Josh Berry is like, I know how this track works. I'm going to show you who's boss. First race with the Wood Brothers. Gets that car into the main event, so all of the four main Penske cars made it into the race. You look at two of the, and then Front Row Motorsports, two of their cars made it in, so that was kind of like that lead Ford affiliation. Plus you have the Roush cars. Custer didn't make it, but all three Roush cars made it in. So a lot of the Ford connection there made it. All the main Toyotas made it, and then except for Herbst. And then, trying to see Yeah, 19, 20, 11. Oh yeah, Keebler Gibbs went and lost his mind in the last chance and tried to launch himself to outer space. So that was cute. But I mean, in the main event, he got a challenge. Clyde got a challenge from Denny Hamlin. He was really the only person that made him sweat. But in the end, that 9 car was the best piece during the weekend. Alan Gustafson gave Clyde a good car and um, good momentum moving towards the Daytona 500, where Clyde is trying to. He joined his father as a winner of this race, the Clash. Now he's trying to join his father in a couple of weeks' time as a winner of the Daytona 500. His teammate won last year, so good momentum for old Clyde.
Yeah, a lot of momentum here for Chase Elliott, who, of course, last year was still kind of getting back into his groove throughout a lot of last year and only won one race, which I think people probably were expecting him to win more races there last year, but only one. And, there was questions about how much he was, being going to be able to get back into it and get back to his pre-injury form. But now starts off this one with a bang here. Not really challenged throughout most of the weekend. Of course, they won the pole for their heat and for qualifying, won their heat race, and then kind of ran away with the Clash there. Of course, had some challenge from Denny Hamlin. Of course, in the middle of it, before halftime, they were able to get the lead with Denny Hamlin, but after that, just never had any challenge from anybody else, really. Ryan Blaney was able to kind of drive through the field and get up there, but then just wasn't willing to use the bumper to try to get by Chase Elliott there when he had the opportunity on new tires there, because you could see Ryan Blaney get right up to the bumper, but he never pressed the issue there. So Chase Elliott was able to drive away, and even through traffic there, trying to get to his bumper, never was able to do that, and Chase Elliott wins the Clash. So I thought it was kind of fitting for him to win the Clash, not because he's in the 9 car, he's Chase Elliott or anything like that, but simply because there's several drivers in this field that came up through the K&N series and raced at Bowman Gray. Chase Elliott was one of them. The Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, Bubba Wallace, Ryan Blaney, all those guys came up through, and Dillon brothers probably too, but they all came up through the K&N series. They were kind of like that class that like people eventually, they all eventually got to the Cup Series, and those guys, they're kind of the nucleus of this new generation of NASCAR racing here in the Cup Series. And so Chase Elliott, I think him and Kyle Larson, I think Blaney, Bubba Wallace, I think those guys are the core members of that group of drivers. And Chase Elliott, being one of those guys, wins NASCAR returns to the Bowman Gray. So from that angle, I thought it was pretty significant there. So just a interesting note there. But functionally, as far as like their team goes, I think they definitely, with the way that they dominated, definitely think the 9's going to be a threat, at least on short tracks. We'll see, the bigger tracks, intermediate tracks, how well they do, but they certainly look like they're back on their game now. So we'll have to look out for them there in that. I think, one thing with this Clash, the way the racing turned out, they talked about aero some, how even on short track like that, it was affecting it. But I think another thing is just like, with the tires, it seemed like Denny Hamlin, as they wore the tires in, going into that halftime break, Denny Hamlin, he was able to make some moves there to try to get around Chase Elliott, and you saw people kind of coming through the field and other people going down the leaderboard. So, you wonder if maybe they should have just had one set for the whole race and not have to, make a pit stop there. Which I guess, yeah, it would probably work out something like that. But I think, maybe if they had ran the whole race without having to change tires, would have made the last 100 laps a lot interesting, because it seemed like once they made that tire change, things kind of stabilized and we didn't really see as much action up front as what we had seen going into the halftime break. And I mean, of course, allowed Ryan Blaney, of course, kind of helped him to get through the field, but I think it would have been a lot more interesting if they just stayed on the same set of tires there. But the race, there was a lot of, I mean, not as much physical action as maybe what we were expecting for the Madhouse in the main event, but still, I mean, plenty that we saw throughout the entire weekend, and especially during the heat races there. But when you look at the results, though, not surprising on who the guys are that finished up front. A lot of short track guys. Bubba Wallace, of course, there too, quietly continuing to click off good finishes in his last 20 starts or so. Cindric also kind of surprising. SVG not as surprising, because I think road course guys, the short track racing is kind of the same deal there. So not surprising he got a top 10 in his first start here in the number 88 there, and everything. So yeah, this was pretty entertaining as an event. I mean, I think the rest of Hendrick outside of Chase Elliott still has a lot of work to do. Yeah, Kyle Larson won, like you said, he won the heat race, but or the last chance qualifier, but otherwise they were out to lunch for a good portion of that, and looked like 24 was also struggling on handling there. So still some improvements that need to be made there. So we'll see if that carries over into the regular season here. So yeah, I mean, great atmosphere throughout the entire race, throughout the entire weekend. And hopefully they bring this back to Bowman Gray next year. There was a report that NASCAR was actually looking at taking the Clash International to possibly Brazil or something like that, which, why would you do that? Like, and they talk about, people were saying online, like, NASCAR, they talk about cutting costs. Oh, well, instead of having an hour of practice, let's just have a 20-minute practice to cut costs. You're going to Brazil. We may as well have an hour of practice. So, why are we doing this? So, I mean, just keep it in Bowman Gray. It works. You had a crowd that was pumped. You had hometown drivers competing, Burt Myers and Tim Brown. So, yeah, both of them did make the main, but the fact that they were in the race was great, and they got to compete in Cup cars. And I think Burt Myers said that he was looking at possibly like a Martinsville deal, or at least another start here in the Cup Series. So yeah, I mean, those guys deserve their chance to race with the the big dogs in NASCAR, and they should be able to do that. And also, I mean, it's a great crowd, and of course a lot of history here with Bowman Gray, and being one of the original NASCAR short tracks, and being a mainstay throughout the years and modifieds and weekly racing. Why would we go to Brazil for a exhibition race and everything? And I mean, yeah, they'd like to grow internationally, but I think there's other ways to do that than taking a track from, or taking a race away from a historic track. So yeah, why would they do that? And stop acting like we're trying to cut costs when we're really not.
Yeah, when you have this car, and when you brought this car along, the notion that they were cutting costs is the same as when they said they brought the Gen 5 car, the neck, whatever you call the COT. They said that was supposed to say cut costs. And you saw basically the series go from about 46 to 50 cars a week in that, at that last year where they were doing both cars, down to having starting parks having to fill the field for like 3 years. So that And I mean, even to this point, the only reason that we don't have starting parks is because of the rules of the charter agreement anyway. There are cars that probably would do that, but going to Brazil, outside of the weather aspect of it, doesn't make a lot of sense. Minus the idiot stick in charge. I mean, I think going to Mexico would be good because of Suarez, and they do have ovals, or at least they have Hermanos Rodriguez. They have an oval layout that they could do. But to me personally, like I was saying to one of my coworkers, I said, why don't you just go to fairgrounds and, give it a shot? Since all these assholes in the local government and people that want to bitch and moan want to talk about NASCAR making noise, but you have no problem with a soccer stadium being built next to it. You have no problem with IndyCars running through the town. So what the hell's the difference of having NASCAR Cup come back to the fairgrounds? Personally, if you told me that was the rotation, like if you do a rotation that included like 5 flags, where they run the snowball, I mean that would be white trash salad, ultimate kind of thing. Matt Weaver would probably lose his mind because he's spent so many hours there, but that's where they need to take this race, because the race doesn't have an identity anymore. Really, they need to have something to make it an identity. So this is the way to do it. Go to classic short tracks of the past. Use up a car for the sake of using up a car. You have the quote all-star race, which is now also at Wilkesboro, but now Wilkesboro's paved, so freshly paved, so there really isn't the same challenge as there used to be. They should just put it back to Charlotte and run the Winston format as they used to have it, and that would be just for the race winners, for the people who have won in the last year, and the people who and then everybody else goes into the hooligan race. That's what I mean, I know they've made all these amendments and stuff like that and put it back to what it was. The same way as like they used to have the Clash for pole winners. They could do that too, but that would make too much sense. Yeah, so that was, I mean, some of the other guys, the Hendrick guys struggling. Gregson made a 3-wide pass. He was on his Larry the Cable Guy routine the whole entire weekend. He was having a family reunion out there, I think, in turn 3, so with all the cousin fuckers and stuff. So good on him. I mean, of course, Kevin Harvick, that's his money. That's one of his money guys, because the stylized 4 from Kevin Harvick is on Gregson's car, so he's making money off of that motherfucker. So he better hope that Gregson can actually drive a hot nail through snow this year. Kyle Busch struggled the whole weekend. Kind of got used up in the heat and didn't really have much anything going on in the main. I'll second what Josh said. I mean, with SVG, the short track thing with the road course drivers, that's where I think SVG will make some points. Of course, every road course they go to, including COTA, which they'll be racing on the short circuit now. He's literally the only guy that's ever driven on that's in the Cup field, because he drove V8 supercars around that like 12 years ago or whatever the hell it was. More than that, who knows? But he drove V8 supercars around that track. So, and then you have Connor Zilic jumping in that race too. So those are two wild cards. But yeah, SVG looking at opportunities there, but to get a top 10 finish in I don't know how many cup starts he's had in an all-star type event is good on him. I mentioned excuse me. I mentioned the guys at Larson and Josh Berry. Burt Myers got junked by O. Richard. Tim Brown had issues on and off the whole entire night, but he was able to stay running. But credit to you got two guys in Tim Brown and Burt Myers who won, I think, what was it, 23 track championships or 25, one of those two. I believe it's like 11 and 12 or 12 and 13 championships at Bowman Gray. So if you want to talk about two of the best to ever do it at that racetrack in a mod, getting that opportunity, it kind of harkens back to what SRX originally was started for in a way. So it's kind of a way to go and jump on one of Tony's ideas that made a lot of sense, and act like they came up with the idea when it really wasn't their idea. But we will have a week off, and then we will see these guys back at Daytona for the Daytona 500. We will get into that when it comes to the NASCAR guys and NASCAR games. But I mean, I guess if we go into who missed the main, I mean, it's what I put that bullet for who missed the main. If there's any key storylines, I mean, there really wasn't anything other than just the fact that they were able to go there. How the crowd was great the whole weekend proves once again that, smaller venues, they're trying to downsize in this economy, and the fact is, even in a downsized racetrack, they're able to basically fill the place. The Clash rate, yeah. So then in the LCQ, I mean, Dylan hit everything but the lottery, but wasn't able to get through. I'm trying to see. Yeah, Tim Brown ended up with a top 10 there. Smithley got spun out, but was able to actually still finish on the lead lap. Keebler Gibbs lost his mind on somebody. I forget who it was. 54.
It was Hocevar or somebody, wasn't it?
Yeah, that feels like it feels like Hocevar. If it wasn't, it says that 54 and the 7 got into it. So
Maybe it was the 7.
Hale, yeah.
The 7 got into everybody.
Yeah, Justin Hale, he couldn't see over the dash, and he got into his dad, AJ Allmendinger. I mean, he got in everybody. And then Hocevar being Hocevar, too. So Spire Motorsports did not have a great night there. Keebler Gibbs had a good car in practice, and then it didn't come off, and then he lost his mind like he usually does. Like a bitch. So yeah, so I mean that's that. I mean, I think AJ Allmendinger had a chance, possibly, but lost track position, got spun out. I mean, other than that, nothing there. And then you got in the main itself, there really wasn't a whole lot of drama. In the race result itself. Did that actually say So the purse was $3 million, but they don't show how the purse was distributed. That's interesting because of the charter agreement. Yeah. So I mean, Penske getting 2 in there. 2 Toyotas up there in the top 5. Trackhouse with 2 cars up in the top 10. Penske getting all 3 of their regular cars in the top 10. So Ford's looking somewhat strong there. But then that kind of goes with what their MO has been, with Ford being better on short tracks and all pretty solid enough on road courses and super speedways. And then the intermediates being their weak spot, Toyota's being really good there along with Chevy. That's kind of how, and so that doesn't really surprise anybody, but we'll see what they're able to do. Michael McDowell won more pole, who had never won a pole, and I think he won 6 poles last year. See if Front Row Motorsports has fast Mustangs, or if it'll be another Hendrick sweep at Daytona. We'll definitely preview the Daytona 500 next week on episode 256. So we'll move forward to the NFL coaching and GM situation. That's also a couple of big trade situations, possibilities where Cooper Kupp is on the trading block for the LA Rams. Miles, or what do you call Myles Garrett wants a trade but isn't gonna, at least not for now, get traded. And so that's something you're talking about. One of the best players in the league asking for a trade, and the Cleveland Browns once again wasting a career of a great player, a Hall of Famer. And then you have Cooper Kupp, but we'll get into those momentarily. I want to let's see where they have anything. Everything is all on the front page. There's all this freaking Super Bowl crap. And then trying to news. Jackson, he done. Yeah. Trying to find. Okay, so NFL coach news. Yeah, so there you go. So that was not updated, or it says training. Okay. So yeah, so we have go back there. So the Cowgirls hired Brian Schottenheimer to be Jerry Jones' new cuckold after they let Mike McCarthy go. Pete Carroll was hired as the Raiders head coach. Carroll will be the 5th head coach in relocating to Vegas from Oakland, and 9 since Mark Davis took over as the owner. Jags pick up Liam Coen after the whole saga that involved Balky finally getting fired for the sake of society. Same way somebody else should have never gotten back into leading, but and then Aaron Glenn goes back to the Jets as the head coach now. And then, yeah, Ben Johnson was Chicago. Vrabel was a C. So right now, the only job that's still open is the New Orleans job. It seems like Kellen Moore is the like the highest, most likely scenario there with that. But I'll throw to you though, Josh, because of everything that went on. You also hired Anthony Campanelli as the DC. You have a bunch of other defensive coaches you brought in there. Coen, after a year working with Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, goes and was a top candidate for this job, but basically was like, thanks, but no thanks because of Trent Baalke. Then Shad Khan had an epiphany. I don't know, maybe he drank something strong. I don't know what came over him. Somebody did whatever, whoever did the same thing to Jed York years ago. But I think as much as anything, I think Jed York was like, he went to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and were like, all right, I want you guys to do this. He finally nutted up. And so I don't know if that was a similar situation for you guys, but in the end, you got rid of one of the worst GMs in sports. You finally got rid of a toxic person. And you have a guy who, while he may be corny, seemingly, is a great play caller. And I think with the young nucleus you guys have, he could go and take Trevor Lawrence and that offense with Brian Thomas Jr. and all the other pieces there, and you can compete in that AFC South division, which is basically wide open right now because Indianapolis blows and so does Tennessee. So Houston's really the only thing standing in your way, and yes, it's a tough conference, but you could flirt if you could put some things together. Could have a decent season. You never know what can happen. You can backdoor a playoff position. But what are your thoughts on everything that transpired there, Josh, with your Jaguars?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of peaks and valleys there in the lead up to the hiring of Liam Coen, because leading up into it, we knew he was going to be a candidate. We also knew that Ben Johnson was going to be a candidate, and we knew that those probably going to be the two best candidates on the market for Jacksonville. And then Ben Johnson took the interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they decided not to hire him, and clearly it seemed like Trent Baalke was going to be a factor in whether he took the job or not. And then he took the Bears job and said that he just didn't like the setup in Jacksonville. And there's a lot of criticism in the league going around the media for what the Jags deciding to keep Baalke. And then Coen interviewed, but then seemed like he was going to go back to Tampa. And even though Trent was actually the guy that was interested in hiring Coen wasn't interested because of Baalke, allegedly. And then all of a sudden it's like it's doom and gloom, it's never going to change, and all of a sudden the bad man's gone, and Trent Baalke fired. Seemingly, I guess Shad Khan had an epiphany and realized, I got to get rid of this guy, and so he did. And then they hired Liam Coen like the next day, which was quite hilarious because the way it all just went down, I'm going to take the extension from the Bucks and become the highest paid offensive coordinator in history. Oh, but I'm not going to sign it. I'm going to secretly fly back to Jacksonville and take this interview again and secretly interview, and not tell anybody about it, and then just blow off the Bucks all day. And than just be like, oh yeah, I interviewed. I'm considering this job again. And next day you're hired. So yeah, the Jags hired a really good offensive coordinator, somebody from the Sean McVay tree. They made the Bucks really good again. Of course, Baker Mayfield, which, of course, like you said, on your fantasy team, really, really good. And really good offense. The one offensive coordinator that was able to hand a loss to the Detroit Lions there in this season. So, yeah, now Jacksonville putting their coaching staff together, and they hired Anthony Campanelli from the Packers, who had time on the Dolphins as well. So, the Jags, looking like a real football franchise once again, is now they've also hired Tony Boselli as executive vice president of football operations, which I've been saying we need. This is what we need. And we need a guy that's the in-between between the coaching and the GM and Shad Khan. And now you have somebody who, has stake in the franchise and believes in it, believes in the city. So Tony, he's the, other than Fred Taylor, I think he's like the guy for the Jacksonville Jaguars that's the embodiment that's most representative of the franchise, and now finally in the Hall of Fame for the last 2 years. So I think he's the guy. I mean, yes, he doesn't have the experience in terms of other executive people that they could have picked, but you make up for it for a guy that will do whatever he can to see this franchise be successful. So because he supports it and has a lot of stake in it, like I said. So now of course they're going and trying to hire a GM. So it looks like Power Structure is going to be the GM, and the GM is going to have the personal decisions. Liam Cohen's going to have a lot of say, which is quite big for somebody who hasn't had head coaching experience. So, and his only coaching experience in the NFL was being an offensive coordinator. So, yeah, it's a big responsibility there, but it's looking like they're trying to hire somebody who has a lot of experience in that area, and then they'll report to Tony Boselli, and Tony and Shad will collaborate. So I think, they wanted to get away from kind of the my way or the highway deal that Trent Baalke was known for, and now they want a more collaborative process where everybody will have a say in the decision-making process there when it comes to personnel, when it comes to draft picks and free agency and all that stuff. So really glad that they made all these decisions, and Jags all of a sudden look like an actual football franchise for the first time in many years. So I'm gonna say, wouldn't take this team seriously had they not. I mean, they did hire Coen, but what I was still looking for was a executive vice president, and I wasn't sure how serious you can take the team regardless of that, because it was the one piece that they need, and now they got that piece, and I think they got the right guy for it. So I'm all for it, and now I guess looking for what they're going to do in the draft and what they'll do in free agency, and how this construction of this team will look like here when we go into training camp and into preseason, and what this offense is going to look like with, obviously Trevor Lawrence, talented quarterback, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. established himself as a number one threat. And if you saw the Pro Bowl, which I actually did not, you saw a guy that could go over the top and take the ball out of the air from the defense. So that was one of the plays that I saw from him online. He had a highlight reel play in the Pro Bowl. So Brian Thomas Jr., I think, future, or if he not already isn't, a guy that is going to be one of the big names and wide receivers in the NFL, and amongst all the other players that they have on offense that can produce there. So And then defense, you got Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen and bunch of other guys that I think are really good. So yeah, let's see what happens and what this team looks like here in a couple months. And you talk about could they compete in the AFC, which is very very stacked. I mean, I think they can because all you gotta do is win the division. And I think given the Texans are kind of been winning by default the last 2 years because nobody else was good enough to try and beat them. So I think as long as you're competent enough, I think you can win the division. I think the AFC South is a very winnable division. So we'll see how it goes, but I think as long as you can get to the opportunity to win the division, then we'll see where they go from there.
Yeah, that's the most positive you've sounded about your team in a while. So that's a good thing. It's amazing what getting rid of Trent Baalke can do. It's almost like the sun comes out again. You think that football can actually happen again too. It's amazing how that seemingly happened now twice. But somehow or another, like a cockroach, that asshole still gets jobs. But in this case, I mean, you got some strong, young. You have a very youthful organization, and then I think the big one, the biggest thing, not even getting Liam Coen, is bringing back your OG, your original first draft pick ever, the Hall of Famer, Tony Boselli, who brings credibility in the league. He brings credibility because of what kind of player he was and kind of leader he was. And so for whatever, I mean, Shad Khan not being an absentee owner, at least you have a guy in Boselli that ain't going to be an absentee EVP. So I think that is as much of if anything, I think the biggest part of it. We see that with the Jets in his ends with Aaron Glenn, bringing him back as their head coach, trying to bring it back to better times. When those guys were around. We'll go through some of these other ones, and in terms of Nick Caley, who's another McVay disciple from the Rams system, went to Houston as their offensive coordinator. John Carroll was head coach for the Raiders. They made Chip Kelly one of the highest paid coordinators in the NFL. John Spytek, whoever the hell he was, the assistant GM in Tampa. And then, so Cowgirls, they hired Matt Eberflus as their DC, former defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Nick Sorensen goes to the Cowgirls as a special teams coordinator. I have no idea who any of these other people are, so whatever. Then, Josh Grizzard, the passing game coordinator, OC in Tampa. Keith Heidenson. That sounds like something from Key and Peele. That can't be a real name. That actually is a real name. But, like, how the hell? That's a Key and Peele special. The passing game coordinator for Tampa Bay. John Morton, not the legendary driver who drove for Nissan, has been hired as the offensive coordinator, formerly the passing game coordinator in Denver. Kelvin Shepard, the linebackers coach in Detroit, and then David Shaw, the longtime Stanford head coach, and then one of the guys who'd always be on the NFL Network broadcasts for the draft, gets a shot in the NFL, passing game coordinator for MCDC. Jets, I mentioned Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji from Denver, Tanner Engstrand, whoever he is, Chris Banjo, special teams coordinator. I know that name from playing Madden. Scott, is that? Yeah. Oh yeah, Scott Turner. So that's Norv Turner's. Yeah, that's Norv Turner's son. Okay, so that's a good pickup. Charles, I don't know who that's, and those guys are, and then Steve Wilkes coming in as DC. The Niners made him expendable for whatever reason, but in the end, he did a good job. Same way as he did what he could in with Carolina, he did the same thing in Arizona. Maybe this time it'll stick for Steve Wilkes. Ben Johnson for Chicago, and hired two interesting people. He hired Dennis Allen as a DC, which isn't a shock. But your buddy Josh Press-Taylor is hired as a passing game coordinator, and the running backs coach is Eric Bieniemy, once upon a time the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. But since leaving the Chiefs, it's been quite a rocky road for him. Baltimore hired Chuck Pagano as a senior secondary coach. And then they you had special team, and then the 49ers, Bob Sala, and then hired Brant Boyer for DC and special teams coordinators, respectively. Clint Kubiak moved from New Orleans to Seattle for offensive coordinator. Jeff Ulbrich is going to be the defensive coordinator under why am I forgetting his name? Raheem Morris. Yeah, so and Al Golden, the former college head coach, Miami, Temple, et cetera, going to Cincinnati as a DC. And then, John Fossil moving over to Tennessee as a special teams coordinator. Lou Anarumo going to Indy. Tommy Rees, a former Notre Dame quarterback, as the OC for Cleveland. So those are just some of the updates there. Hair down for Erdahl there. All right. So we will move on to the news. Sorry to the Kelseys. Don't sue me. I don't have that much money, but they sure as hell do. We'll go through. Comcast renews their partnership with NASCAR, and they're going to make the Xfinity fastest lap. So that'll be interesting. That'll be a bonus point. I mean, I'd rather they would go and sponsor a lap-led bonus point like they used to have in the past. The Comcast, and then they signed that deal, so they'll stay as a premier partner, but the Xfinity series is not, they're not going to stick around as the entitlement sponsor for the Xfinity series, for the second series, past, I think, this year or next year. So that's tough. I saw somebody on social media. It's like, hey, Bush, this is an opportunity since they're also a premier partner to bring it back old school. We have the Craftsman Truck Series. It's a perfect time. You want to push that brand, make the NASCAR Busch Series again. It would be pretty cool. Yeah, there's some other, driver announcements for schedules and for some of these drivers. Chase Briscoe, I think I mentioned it last week, that he'll do a one race deal at Charlotte in May with Lance Snacks. So interstate batteries on the 20 and the most for 5 races, and then one race for Keebler. PPG will be on Josh Berry's car at Indy. Probably will look just like Newgarden's car. No truck news other than that thing that I saw where Justin Haley and Michael McDowell will be attempting the truck race at Daytona, so that'll be interesting. That race will be on Valentine's Day. The practice will be on Thursday night, qualifying earlier in the afternoon, weather permitting, of course. So that's what we see I see on J-Ski at least. I guess the one question would be, what do you think about the fastest lap implementation or whatever? Does it really change anything? In the case of Kyle Larson, they were using Kyle Larson as an example. He would have won the regular season title. Now, of course, his playoff wasn't all that great, but who knows what that would have meant in the grand scheme of things. Do you think it really changes how these drivers manage races, going for 1 point, knowing how much a point matters, I guess, in these every point matters and the like? Do these drivers do anything different now to try and get that fastest lap because of the sponsor gimmick, Josh, or is it just going to be the same old, and what'll happen is going to happen?
It's a tough way to look at it. I mean, one hand, I don't think it would really change much. But on the other hand, depending on who gets it, right? I mean, it won't matter most of the time, I think. But whoever gets it, it could make the difference. I kind of look at it the way as, the old lap leader bonus that NASCAR used to give, or most laps led bonus that they gave. Well, those made a difference, right? Especially if you led the most laps. But you never know when those points might come in hand, right? 5 lap, it was 5 points for leading a lap back then. Here, I mean, it's going to be 1 point for the fastest lap. You never know when that 1 point is going to come in. And yeah, the case of Larson, it's a very special case where they could have won the regular season title and would have gotten that 15 bonus points for that. So in that case, yes, it will matter. But at the same time, I think you're not really going to see a team from the bottom third unless we're at Daytona or something, Talladega, one of the super speedways, but it's definitely going to come out of one of the top third, more than likely, on the field. And it also could give indication, I mean, obviously qualifying, but during the race, who has the best car, the fastest car in race trim. So it could give insight, just from an analysis standpoint of who's got speed on a weekly basis. So there's definitely a lot to look into just for this little award here. And I guess it does kind of make it interesting. And we kind of see in Formula One, this award, and for the most part, fastest lap, it's usually somebody like in the middle of the pack comes in, gets new tires at the end, and just puts on a heater of a lap to get that point. But then there are times where it does matter for the championship there. So kind of the same light, right? So we'll see how this affects it and everything. And of course, I think the other thing we should bring up, because that kind of goes in hand with this, is that they're not sponsoring the Xfinity Series, or they won't be renewing their partnership there. And in the case that they don't, let's say that they don't find a title sponsor, which I think they will, but if they don't, like, what do you call these cars? This second tier, right? Because you have the Cup Series and you have the trucks. Well, what's a fill in the blank car, right? And that's my criticism of the Xfinity Busch Series, is that, since they dropped the Grand National name from the Busch Series, we don't really know what the identity of this series is beyond the name of the title sponsor. And it's hard, when you talk about, sports fans know what the cars are, but like, to someone who's like completely like new to this, that doesn't know, okay, well, what's the difference between a Cup car and an Xfinity car? I think Cup kind of implies that, yeah, this is the top level series, but okay, what's an Xfinity car? Like, what does that mean? So that's been kind of one of my criticisms there, is that it doesn't have an identity beyond the title sponsor and everything. And I'm sure they'll find, I think they should just call, yeah, you're right, they should call it the Busch Series. I feel like half the people that watch NASCAR anyway still call it the Busch Series or the BGN Series, right? So, yeah, of course, we all know it's the second tier of NASCAR, and it's kind of like the AAA equivalent to baseball, right? But, yeah, they definitely need to figure out a way to identify these cars beyond the title sponsor of the series. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here, and who they find. But yeah, it's kind of changing the nature of the game here, and I guess kind of like Geico's no longer involved with this, and now they have their whole logo, the Restart Zone. They got to find a new sponsor for the Restart Zone in Daytona, because that was blank during the Rolex. So we'll see who they come up with here. But yeah, it just shows how things change.
And it shows the cost basis changes that are going on for some of these Fortune 500 companies, even though they're getting tax breaks up the wazoo. So, that's something we will definitely examine more of what happens with the second tier series. Of course, having the CW show every race, they have a dedicated TV crew. Now, whether that TV announced crew will go to every race is a whole other story, but that's something to be discussed later on. I think after we know that with the trucks, after the Fox part of the season ends, which now will be before will be I think the All-Star race, and that'll be it. Wonder where I think they'll be doing the rest of their season from their studio, and they have a big new studio in Charlotte that they want to utilize, so that'll be something to look at too. But random aside there. IndyCar news. Louis Foster. You got a couple guys there with the two of the Ray Hall Letterman drivers. There's a preview of Ganassi, Root Beer Floathead. Yeah, they just basically did the same scheme. So there's a little bit more yellow on Pelot's scheme. There's yellow on the roll hoop, and otherwise it looks exactly the same as last year's. So trying to do his own version of a three-peat here in 2025. And then Andretti Global liveries were debuted. Cambridge, of course, being on Colton Herta's car. Chili's will be on the 27 for Kyle Kirkwood, and Bryant Heating and Cooling will be on the 28 for Marcus Ericsson. So interesting. All three cars having unique sponsors there now. Understanding how Dan Taurus is a trillionaire, it's entirely possible that he has his hands in each one of those. So, but still, at least it's three unique sponsors, and they look cool. The Bryan Heating and Cooling, you can have a throwback options. There are plenty of throwback options going back in the day. And, Chili's having Kyle Kirkwood going and doing goofy commercials with all their appetizers and baby back ribs and stuff, even though Kyle Kirkwood probably looks like he might eat one. Yeah, so that's IndyCar. In Formula One. Yeah, back on track. Yeah. It announced the race start times. Then UK Technical Center being opened by Sauber, Audi to expedite their process of entering Formula One. Lewis testing Pirelli tires. Noreen. Oh, they're actually interviewed Noreen Karthikeyan. They're announcing some of the ladies that'll be in F1 Academy. Looks like name revealed for. So the SF. Well, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So it'll be the SF25. All right. And then, all right. So that's, I don't really see anything of great significance going on to updates, at least. The new fire suits for Ferrari. They made their debut with that, to put out the ads and stuff. Going through that in F2. Okay, Easterson. Oh, so the Max Easterson, Luca Fornaroli, Pepe Marti, Arvin Lindblad Goth, Richard Vashore, Luke Browning, Daniel Boganovic, Roman Stanek, Sebastian Montoya is driving for. Oh yeah, that's right, driving for Prema. Gabriele Mini, Jack Crawford, and Kush Miney for Lucas Oil Dams. Ritomo Miata, Max Easterson for Trident. He's a British guy. All right. Dirksen Shields. What is that guy? John Bennett. Plain Jane name. And so there's still 3 drivers to be announced in Formula 2. And then the drivers in. Is that Luca Baddour's kid? Oh my god. Luca Baddour's son. Christ almighty. Wow. That is, I am getting old. Luca Bador's son. And then Noel Leon from Mexico. And then Ugo Uchechu, the American driver who'd been connected with McLaren and stuff. He was Euro 4 champion, won the Macau Grand Prix. So American driver to root for in F3. Never even heard of most of these guys. We'll probably be talking about them more. Charlie Wirtz, yeah, that's okay. So now that's Alexander Wirtz's son. For fuck's sake. Lawrence Van Hopen, Tuukka Tappinen, he should be doing rally. James Warren, that's an Aussie. Mari Boya, Nicholas Soloff. Yeah, Puvasek, yeah, the Thai driver. Stenshorn from Norway. Yeah, that. Gerard G from Germany. Tim Tramnitz. Bruno Del, okay. Eusti. Yeah, he looks like he's 14. Yeah, he looks like a tool. That guy. Yeah. Ramos, that's playing Santiago, yeah, another Mexican. Wait, is that he? Oh, wow. I share the same birthday with him, so okay. That's cool. Somebody else to root for. Going through, I'm trying to figure out who most of these people are, because they don't even look like they're 15. Some of them I don't think I've ever thought of having facial hair, let alone growing it. 2 drivers for AIX Racing still to be determined, so they're one of the teams that need drivers. Zagazeta. Okay, so 1 American driver, a couple Mexican drivers, a couple of sons of former Formula One drivers in Formula 3. So, and then I guess if we're doing that, we might as well go through F1 Academy for their drivers. Emma Feldmeyer for Sauber and Roden Motorsports. Courtney Crone, the American driver, supported by Haas, who will be driving for ART. Alba Hurup Larson, supported by Tommy Hilfiger, driving for MP Motorsports. Chloe Chambers, driving for Red Bull, Ford, and Campos Racing. One of her teammates will be Rafaela Ferreira, driving for RB. Ella Lloyd McLaren, driver support, and then Roden Motorsports. Alicia Palmovsky, Red Bull Racing, with Campos. And then Aurelia Nobles for Puma and ART. Dorian Panbeck, again this year, supported by Mercedes and driving for Prema, one of the Iron Dames. Leah Block in her second season with Williams, driving for ART. Maya Woog for Ferrari, driving for MP Motorsport. And then there's still 2 drivers for Prema, 2 drivers for High Tech, and 1 for Rodin and MP to be announced still. So we'll see. There's a lot. Gotta say, there's plenty of Americans on the grid. 3 Americans competing full time. And then if you want to count South America representation, you have Ferreira too. So that's 3. And then Nobles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, that's pretty crazy. So guess I have to watch F1 Academy. All right. So let us move over to the roundup. Try to make it snappy. There's been testing for MotoGP. The official test at Sepang is going to start off here on Wednesday, the 5th, then go through the 7th, the Friday. There will be, so you'll have every team will be involved with their riders. You'll have, KTM's going to run 6 bikes with their 2 test riders. Danny Pedrosa, Paul Espargaro joining their 4 regular riders. You have Yamaha with their 2 regular riders and their 2 test riders with Augusto Fernandez and Andrea Dovizioso joining their regular riders, and of course Pramac coming in as a satellite team. Honda will have Taka Nakagami joining their regular riders there. And then Aprilia, Lorenzo Salvadori, their test rider. And then Michele Pirro for Ducati. So that'll be interesting test to see where everybody is at with the season coming up here sooner than later. And seeing the grid on their new bikes and the like, see what the defending world champion can do. Jorge Martin on the Aprilia, Marco Bezzecchi coming from Ducati as well. Maverick Vinales going from Aprilia to KTM, and Enea Bastianini from Ducati to KTM. Miguel Oliveira was riding for Trackhouse last year on the Aprilia. Now he's riding Yamaha. Jack Miller has been all over the place. Was at KTM, now in Yamaha. Fabio Di Gianantonio is still at VR46. And then Franco Morbidelli moves from Pramac to VR46. Grassini keeps Alex Marquez, brings in Fermin Aldeguer, and then Trackhouse with they're the satellite team for Aprilia with Raul Fernandez and Ayagura. And then Johan Zarco and Somikat Chantra for LCR. So there is that for MotoGP. Bathurst 12-hour was definitely a great race. But in the end, of course, it starts in the dark early in the morning. and then ends in the afternoon. WRT BMW gets the win. WRT gets their first win out on the mountain since 2018, with the brothers of Kelvin and Sheldon Vanderlinde and Augusto Farfus, who's involved in controversy at Daytona, comes back and is able to win in the Bathurst 12 hours. So a great result for BMW. The WRT team goes and takes first and second. The 75 Sun Energy Mercedes ends up third. Kenny Habel, who lives down the back on the back straightaway there, coming into it's not the cut. What do they call that? The not the Forest Elbow. Why am I forgetting the damn name of the track schedule?
Talking about the Chase, or
yeah, the Chase. Yeah. So he lives in that hotel down the Chase, and ends up finishing third. Ferrari with Chaz Mostert, Will Brown, the defending Supercars champion, and Daniel Serra was fourth. And then Mercedes, Jaden Ojeda, Lucas Arm, Maximilian Goetz was fifth. And then three Porsche factory guys finished sixth. Harder Racing running a Mercedes, Evo with Roscoe, Zach Robichani, and James, after running at Daytona, go to Australia and finish seventh. And then, so BMW getting a 1-2, Valentino Rossi finishing second with his teammates there at Bathurst. He's going to be running the WEC full time this year, so we'll get to see Valet in the LM GT3 category there. And then I think, what is it? Drag Racing Pro Shootout, whatever. Yeah, the Pro Superstar Shootout at Bradenton Motorsports Park is going to be back this year. Later this weekend, all the competitors. So yeah, in Top Fuel, you're going to have nine drivers, it looks like here. So yeah, you're going to have Justin Ashley, Antron Brown, Doug Foley, Brittany Force, now newly married Brittany Force, Josh Hart, Doug Coletta, Sean Langdon, Sean Reed, and Anthony Wayne Stewart. In Funny Car, Jack Beckman, of course, driving John Force's car. You have Ron Capps, Chad Green, Matt Hagan, defending Funny Car champion Austin Prock, Dave Richards, Bob Tasca, J.R. Todd with a god-awful mustache, and Daniel Wilkerson. And then in Pro Stock, you'll have, wow, that's the biggest field there. 12, 15. They'll have a full car count there. Greg Anderson, some guy named Stephen Bell, Jed Coughlin Jr., Troy Coughlin Jr., Christian Quadra, David Quadra, Fernando Quadra Jr., Enders, Dallas Glenn, the Derek Kramer, Eric Latino. So yeah, you got 4 KB Titan guys. Then you have 5. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elite drivers. And there's 8 elite drivers. Then you have, and then 5 KB Titan guys. With Corey Reed. And then 9, okay, Greg Stanfield also is an elite car. So 9 elite cars, 5 KB Titan cars, and then 2 for Harlow Salmons with the McGahays there. No, it'll be on Flow Racing, a lot of money, great preliminary for before they get towards the new season and going to Gainesville to start the year. Drag Racing Pro Superstar Shootout. All right. So yeah, Supercross at Glendale last week. Jet Lawrence. NFL. State Farm Stadium. The overall results in the 450 class, Chase Sexton didn't win any of the motos, but he was the most consistent. Gets the Triple Crown victory by a point over Cooper Webb. Ken Roxon finished 3rd. Eli Tomac was 4th. Hunter Lawrence was 5th. His brother Jet got hurt, the defending series champion, and will be out for the rest of the Supercross season. So possibility of a new champion opens up the door for Eli Tomac and what supposedly is going to be his last year. Cooper Webb, multi-time champion. Sexton, one-time champion along with Jason Anderson. So there's a bunch of guys that other guys have never won before. So we'll see how that all comes off. But as we go into the points, the 450 points standings now, Chase Sexton, with his second win of the season, leads by 2 over Ken Roxon, retakes the red plate. Eli Tomac is 9 points back in 3rd. Cooper Webb 10 points back in 4th. And that's really where the race is at the moment. Jason Anderson's 20 points out. Hunter Lawrence 22. Barsha's 32 points back, along with Malcolm Stewart. So they're kind of already out of it. But that battle from Jason Anderson going back to Justin Cooper is only 13 points. So they have a nice battle amongst themselves there. Back into the top 10 in the 450 class. In 250s, Jordan Smith for Triumph gets the win. Gets a win so great for that company there. Hayden Deegan finished 2nd. Cole Davies was 3rd. Julian Beaumer tied ended up with the tiebreaker after finishing 2nd in the 3rd moto over Michael Mosman. And the West standings going into a break. Julian Beaumer has a 2-point lead on Jordan Smith and a 3-point lead on Hayden Deegan. So great battle there. 15 points between Beaumare and Cole Davies. 19 points Beaumare to Joe Shimoda in 5th. So that'll be 24, yeah. So 24 to Cody Schock. But really the battle is amongst those top 4, really the top 3, but you can get it extended out all the way to Shimoda if you really want to. And this weekend will start the East Coast 250 part of the season. Then you have Glendale. Then they'll be racing. So that'll be they were racing A1. No, those are outdoor. Yeah, so Glendale was the first indoor race they had. Tampa will be outdoor. Then they'll race in Detroit, Arlington. So 2 indoor races before coming back for the Daytona Supercross, which is a super unique track, of course, designed by RC. So the East Coast part of the schedule will take over here for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 rounds. I think maybe 6 rounds. And then so that's 250 East, yeah. Oh, Arlington is actually a West Coast race. Wow, okay. East-West Showdown at Indy. Then Birmingham's an East Coast race. Then then they'll be alternating couple races, and Philadelphia will be another East-West Showdown. And then, East Rutherford in April. We'll see if the weather's nice. I've been meaning to go for that. Oh, Acrisure Stadium's actually going to have a Supercross? Wow. Heinz Field is actually going to have a Supercross. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the Stupid Bowl with Kermit and Kels and Ryad and Taylor and the Chiefs versus what's his name, Sirianni, the Tush Push, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, etc., and the Philadelphia Eagles. Josh, you can open it up. Let us know what are your thoughts on this game. And in the end, who do you think will get the win in the Super Bowl on Sunday?
I think it's going to be a very defensive game. The 2 defenses, Steve Spagnuolo and the Eagles' defense. Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs and Eagles' defense. Yeah, both of them really tough. You have a formidable running back on the Eagles and 2 really, really good wide receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. This is going to be tough for the Chiefs' defense. And then Mahomes on the other side for the Chiefs. You still have Pacheco, you still have Kelsey, and you still have Xavier Worthy there. So there's still threats on the Chiefs, but I don't think their offense is as good as the Eagles' offense and everything. We've already kind of alluded to it anyways, like with our last show. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a battle of who can stop the tush push or that, and who can stop Patrick Mahomes from getting away with this once again. So yeah, I expect this to be somewhat low scoring game. I don't think it's going to be quite like the game a few years ago when they played each other and it was like 38-35 or something like that. I think it's going to be much lower than that. I think I don't think either of them score more than 25 points apiece. So we'll say it. I don't know where the over under is, but I would not bet against them scoring total points scored more than 50 points for the whole game. So yeah, I would even say even lower than 45, but we'll see how that plays out there. Maybe the Chiefs will suddenly score more than 30 points in a game to which I think they did technically. I think the AFC Championship game is the first game all year where they actually scored more than 30 points. And I guess they did it in the game where they needed to do that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, and sure will be a lot of things that happen in this game. Of course, yeah, heightened nature of being in New Orleans right now with all that's happened there to start the year. So we'll see how that goes and everything. But I'm going to pick the Eagles. You know what? I'm going to stick to my beliefs and say that the Eagles stop the three-peat from happening. And despite not liking them, I'm going to hope that Saquon carries them to the Super Bowl title. That's what I'm going to go with.
What was your final score?
My final score, I'm going to say 24-21. Eagles.
So, Josh, so Super Bowl SB 59 picks. Josh goes Philly over KC 24-21. And then your MVP would be Saquon then?
Yes.
Saquon MVP. All right. Me here, the last, 2 Super Bowls ago for Philly when they made it against New England. Luckily was able to attend that. One of the best Super Bowls ever. Big Dick Nick Foles is not coming through the tunnel, but they're going to have a lot of momentum on their side if they can run the ball, like Josh is saying. If they're able to go in that matchup, the Philly offensive line versus Kansas City's defensive line is probably going to dictate this whole entire deal, because KC's running game is whatever. Kermit the Frog is going to do his usual bullshit. The officials are going to be under a microscope because of the terrible job they seem to do on a weekly basis when Kansas City games are there. The odds right now, 1.5, like minus 1.5. Chiefs winning. MGM over under is 49. So that's some. This is on Newsweek. Yeah. So 20. Kendrick Lamar. Lamar solo for first solo performance. Is it first solo rappers at time? Okay. SZA is gonna be on there with Kendrick Lamar. John Baptiste and will the DC lift every voice and sing? They're actually gonna go and do that with Orange Aiden in person. That's something. For me, the reality of the world is I'm not winning either way. A lot of us aren't winning either way with this game. If the three-peat happens, the NFL is already doing deals with Pat Riley so they can get the three-peat. moniker. The way this whole season has been, I'm like, at some point this has to end. But it isn't going to end on Sunday. We're going to be stuck with Kermie and Kansas City and all that goes with the Chiefs. Will end up with a three-peat. I think Chris Jones is able to have one of his best games of his life, and just make Jalen Hurts his bitch. And I think that is going to be a huge part of why the Kansas City Chiefs win, because the reality is it's about their defense first and foremost. Spags getting another Super Bowl victory as a DC. The Kansas City will be able to do some stuff on offense, but it might come down to some special teams things. Josh Hawley's boyfriend is being a good kicker at times. That hasn't been this year, really. But, I look at their return game, especially in the AFC Championship game. It looked like Kansas City had a really efficient return game there. So in the end, it's not like Kermit the Frog's ever played amazing in this game. I think last year was the first time where I think he played decent. And Brock was kind of staying with him. And Kels isn't going away, whatever happens. But he's probably going to propose to Taylor on the field if it happens. So for Nausean, for Pepto-Bismol, this is going to be sponsored by Pepto-Bismol. For all the people, including me, they're going to need it. we need a Pepto-Bismol segment for this, because that's who we need to get an ad for before NASCAR makes it the official stomach upset sponsor or whatever the fuck. Kansas City.
Tums. Isn't it Tums? I don't know.
I don't know. You're probably right. Whatever. It's they have a sponsor for everything. I'm surprised that I'm sure Dude Wipes is sponsoring the PBA Tour. I'm surprised that Dude Wipes isn't sponsoring something in NASCAR, like NASCAR itself. I know they sponsor Anthony Alfredo, but 27-23. That's what it'll be. 27-23. Kansas City gets the three-peat. And hopefully I'm not watching that when that happens. I have a chance to do that, but my family, my cousin's boyfriend is an Eagles fan, so I'm sorry to him. He doesn't listen to the show, so it's okay. And he came out to race with me in the Sims, did a good job there, but his Eagles are going to get... If it isn't Chris Jones, it's going to be the refs. If it isn't either of those things, I think Jalen Hurts hasn't been amazing this year, and this is going to be the spot where he gets exposed. And they were able to stop the tush push I don't know how many times, and goal line runs against Josh Allen, who is winning in life because he's engaged to Haley Steinfeld, but didn't win on that game 2 weeks ago. So the MVP of the Super Bowl, I don't want it to be Kermit, but then I have this bad feeling that if it isn't Kermit, it's going to be Kelsey. I never have liked Chris Jones, but I've been watching him a couple of these games, And the dude is like, he's literally what Aaron Donald used to be. Like, he is that unstoppable. And that is it. You know, like, once you get past Chris Jones, really, you got a bunch of spare parts, a lot of spare parts. They have a good they have good corner. That I'll say, but their linebackers suck. Most of their other line players are scraps. Menahu used to be on the Niners, and he was a role player. Safeties usually are meh. I mean, it's really about Chris Jones. So I'll go crazy. I know it won't happen. I'll say Chris Jones wins the MVP. It's only happened once, I think, in the history of the Super Bowl, going way back when. I think it was Dallas, Denver, where a defensive player won the MVP. But I'll go Chris Jones as the MVP.
You mean like a lineman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all for it. Yeah.
I mean, it's because I don't remember how many. I don't think. Like, I'm trying to think Super Bowl MVP. Oh yeah, there's been other defensive players.
Malcolm Smith.
Malcolm Smith for Tampa Bay. There was Larry Brown for Dallas. Von Miller. Okay, Malcolm Smith. Oh no, that was Seattle. Malcolm Smith. 1, 2. Dexter Jackson for Tampa Bay. That's 3. Double Murder 4. Larry Brown 5. Richard Dent 6. Harvey Martin and Randy White. That's 7. That's Dallas. 7.5. Jake Scott for Miami. That's 8. Chuck Hawley for Dallas in Super Bowl 5. 9. So, all right. It'd be the 10th defensive player to ever win the MVP. It would be the quarterbacks, for the most part, have won the Super Bowl MVP more than any other position, of course. Kermit has won it 3 times. And he had 3 touchdowns a couple of years ago. Last year, he threw for 333 and 2 scores. So, and he led the drive to win the game there. So there's that. I think, I don't know, in terms of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I'm looking at, where are we at?
Fred Taylor. I hope he gets in. That's what I'll say. That's the only thing I want to say for that part.
Football Hall of Fame 2025 finalists. Yeah. So the modern era players or so then slated candidate modern era considered NFL honors. They'll be announced on Saturday. 5 players, and so it's Eric Allen, longtime corner. Jared Allen, of course, defensive end. Willie Anderson, longtime offensive tackle. Jari Evans played most of his career for New Orleans. Willie Anderson, most of his career at Cincinnati. Jared Allen was always remembered with Minnesota. Eric Allen with Philadelphia Eagles, but spent multi-year stints in Philly, New Orleans, and Oakland. Antonio Gates in his, I think, second year of eligibility. Luke Kuechly, Torrey Holt up there. Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning in their first year of eligibility. T. Sizzle in his first year of eligibility. Steve Smith Sr., Fred Taylor, as you mentioned, Josh, Automatic Adam, Vinatieri, Reggie Wayne, Darren Woodson, and Marshall Yonda, the longtime he played his whole career for the Baltimore Ravens. Who knew that? Selecting me up to 5 modern era, 5 other senior category finalists, along with Maxie Vaughn, Sterling Sharp, Jim Trier, Hall of Coach finalist Mike Holmgren, and contributor finalist Ralph Hay. Okay. So, yeah, Jared Allen's been a finalist 5 times, Torrey Holt 6 times, along with Reggie Wayne. And then Willie Anderson 4 times. Otherwise, everybody else is no more than 3. Darren Woodson, the last 3 years. That's interesting considering how long Darren Woodson's been retired. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in their first year of eligibility. I mean, I don't think Eli goes in here. I think it would be pretty cool to see 2 Carolina Panthers go in together, and Steve Smith and Luke Kuechly. I would probably lean towards them putting in Antonio Gates. Which wide receiver of either Torrey Holt or Reggie Wayne are they going to pick? They can probably pick one of them guys. So that's Gates and one of them. Personally, you have to put Adam Vinatieri. He's, until Tucker went and, well, now, of course, being a sexual molester, but until Justin Tucker, Adam Vinatieri is probably the best kicker in the history of the NFL. All the big-time kicks he had to make. There's very few specialists in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but Adam Vinatieri is unbelievable. And so that's 3. My other 2, I honestly think Kuechly is one of them. That's 4. And then they'll put in an offensive lineman. So they'll either, one of the guys, whether it's Willie Anderson, Jari Evans, or Marshall Yonda, they'll pick one of those 3. So that'll be the balance. That'll be the 5 that make it in there. So I think you can be on the ballot for like 20 years. So there's also, so that's one thing for Eric. There's one thing for Eric Allen. I believe that to be the years of eligibility. So yeah, there's monitors, section process, blah, 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 to before cut to 15. Yeah. So there, that might also be in play there for Eric Allen and or Darren Woodson, who only recently have been picked as a finalist. So one of those guys might get in just based on that. So we'll see what happens, though. All right, Josh. Oh yeah, and then MVP. I think they'll give it to Lamar, but they should give it to Josh Allen. Offensive Player of the Year is going to probably be Saquon Barkley. Defensive Player of the Year. There's so many great players. Defensive, NFL honors nominees. Yeah, so Yeah, so finalists for the MVP. You have Allen, Barkley, Burrow, Goff, and Lamar Jackson. They'll give it to Lamar, but I think it should be Josh Allen. Defensive Player of the Year is Pat Surtain, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt, Zach Bond. I mean, Bond's playing in the game, so I don't know if they're going to have him on there. I already said for Offensive Player of the Year, I mean, it would be pretty for either Cincinnati guy, Burrow or Chase. Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels. That's a loaded Offensive Rookie of the Year category. Brian Thomas Jr. for your Jaguars there, Josh. Probably give it to Daniels, where Brock Bowers is one of the only bright spots for the Raiders. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think it'll be Jared Verse for the Rams. Eagles with 2 corners, making that in there. Comeback Player of the Year, I think the lean would be DeMar Hamlin, but Burrow with injuries, J.K. Dobbins with injuries would probably be one of them guys. And then Coach of the Year, I think MCDC or Quinn would probably be that. Assistant Coach of the Year they'll probably give to I would think they'd probably give it to Vic Fangio. It's like kind of a lifetime achievement award. Probably. So we'll see what happens next week. All right, Josh, let us know what's going on in iRacing gaming in your sim segment.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think this week, Bathurst 12 Hours on iRacing special event is this weekend. Yeah, and a lot of people getting ready for that, of course. They came out with a update today. I think there's an important update that just came out. One of the things that they did in this update, I think they're increasing the balance of performance for GTP cars, because the Acura GTP in the game has too much of an advantage, where in normal leagues or normal prototype racing, the Acura GTP tends to be a lot faster, so a lot of people just default to that car and everything, so they just run that car a lot, and I guess now give back balance to the rest of the cars that they have on that series. So good there to kind of even things out, so not everybody's racing the Acura GTP. Daytona 500 coming up, of course, with the iRacing Daytona 500 on the same weekend as the NASCAR Daytona 500 there, so be looking forward for that. This week, of course, on iRacing, got Mazda MX-5 at Okayama Circuit, GT4 at Long Beach, BMW M2 at Okayama Circuit, TCR cars at Long Beach also, Global Sports Cars at Daytona, Global MX-5s, Advanced Global MX-5s at Circuit La Sarthe, Michelin Pilot Challenge also at Long Beach Street Circuit there on that. Might compete in that, maybe. That's a 2-hour race. We'll see. Stock cars, oval racing, got the junior open wheel cars at Indianapolis, iRacing Class C, that might be one I want to hit up at Homestead. So trucks at Homestead, that's always a good combination on iRacing. 87 cars at Watkins Glen on there, and the Winter iRacing Series at 87 cars at Homestead on there. I think, see here, owned, let's see. The Cup Series at Milwaukee Mile this week, and Xfinity at Rockingham. So just like how they tested last week at Rockingham, Xfinity in the game at Rockingham this week, which they've had for several years. So be pretty interesting to see how the game races with Rockingham there. So yeah, still I think that's it for now. Of course, streams at Twitch TV/usailor2, which the Daytona 24 hours still up there, I think. So if you want to watch that, go on there and watch that, and still, go on there. And there's plenty of other people's 24-hour content, which I was just watching last night. Somebody else's run, or their summary of their run, and they had just so many mishaps throughout it. And one of the comments in the comments was like, "Oh, you just got to drive like a grandma throughout the entire race, and that's how you make it to the end." And I got to agree with that, because if you try to set fastest lap every lap, you'll probably crash out, and probably whether you crash yourself out, or you not paying attention and you run into somebody, there's a lot of things that can happen. So it's best to rein it back in and go. It's an endurance race. It's 24 hours, so got to last the whole way there and all that. So go on, watch all that content for 24 hours, which of course, also I'll plug, I posted on, so I had photography, of course, for 24 hours of Daytona, which posted that on IMSA Racing, and got 100 upvotes, I think, on there. So pretty good, and had some pretty good photos on there. Had one with the Iron Dames Porsche on there, color matching. So the Ferris wheel shot that I've been trying to get this weekend, I had a couple where the colors from the lights on the Ferris wheel matched up with the car, so it had a more pinkish, greenish Ferris wheel colors with Iron Dames. And then there's another one where it matched up with Spike from LMP2 from AO Racing, so that was pretty cool. It had another one with the Mustang with American flags in the foreground from the campground, so that was pretty cool too. So yeah, go on Reddit, it's on there. I'll send it to you after this, Phil, but yeah, it's pretty good, and it's basically what I sent you and Joe in our text chat, basically. But yeah, so yeah, go in there and IMSA Racing, and I mean, there's plenty of other photography content as well on there, but I posted mine there as well. So look at that, and then of course Twitter at JP Huffine. Go and follow me there, and talk about Jags. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl. Probably will post a Super Bowl parlay bet that probably won't go through, so we'll only throw in like $5 or $10 into that and see what happens, or something. I'm very much thinking about doing that, like and doing all that. So we'll see how that goes, and of course our YouTube page at Gripship Podcast. We can go and follow that on there. So, and subscribe to our page and interact with our videos and all that stuff. So yeah, glad to have NASCAR back, and seemed like a long time, even though it was only in November. So I don't know why this off season seemed pretty long, but now NASCAR's back, and got a break for a minute here because of the Super Bowl, but otherwise NASCAR back on track, and Daytona, here we come.
Yes, sir. Daytona 500 next week, episode 256. We will preview NASCAR in 2025 for all three major series. We'll make our at least initial picks for the champion and final four. There's no rookie of the year anymore, so that doesn't matter. But we'll also we'll preview and make picks for the winners of all three major events at Daytona for NASCAR. We'll recap the Super Bowl and everything else going on. You can find me at going through here. I never remember this. I don't know why, but on Insta you can find me. I'm at PGMGSP28, and on okay, so there's that. That's good. In terms of X, can find me at PGMatthew28, and then Blue Sky is PGMGSP28, and so that's those three for the socials. PhilipGMatthew.com. Of course, check out the YouTube page, Ripster Pod, and personal page. And then we're on Podbean, of course, too, when I decide to actually do my part. So, yes, we will be back next week, episode 256 of the Grip Strip Podcast. And as always, thank you, Josh, for all your work and for your contributions and insight. And for everyone, we'll see you next time. And NASCAR is back, and we'll be back and better than ever for that next week for the Gripster Pod. So we'll see you next time. Take care.